What's up, you guys? So I'm going to talk to you guys about white noise, and white noise is very important for EDM music. It's kind of what some people call weathering a track, or undercurrent of a track, or just a texture to fill in the gaps in the frequency spectrum. So it's pretty much just a filler. It's not something that you want to have necessarily be one of the loudest things on a track. It's definitely going to be mixed down for most people. So white noise is there's a bunch of easy ways to make it, but my preference is always to use Sylenth. If I'm gonna do any white noise stuff, I don't really like using samples because samples to me, I don't know. I just like to be in control of every aspect of a sound I put into a track. So white noise samples to me are colored and sometimes compressed, and I don't like using those. So I'm going to show you how to make one inside of a Sylenth. So Sylenth is a very easy way to do this, and I'm using stock plugins for everything else. So what I would advise for you guys to do is when you're done, group all the plugins together and close it down and put it into a little rack. So for me, every time I'm in a new track, I just bust this out, and it's a white noise track. So in Sylenth, this is very easy to do, and I'll show you everything else I did on my chain here. So this is very easy. So it's pretty much just one oscillator in part A, on noise, one voice, and I didn't touch anything up here. And then for my amp envelope, attack and decay are all the way down. Sustain is at 6.84 and release is at 2.97. And I didn't use oscillator 2, so nothing there. And then I put on a high pass on 12 dB slope, and my cutoff is at 930 hertz, and reso and driver all the way down. So very simple stuff so far. I'm just filtering out some of those low end sounds frequencies I don't want, and I didn't touch anything on my filter control here, so you don't need to touch this right now. Oh, and be sure to initialize your preset first before you do all this. I'm sure most of you had. And let's see. So now for my mod envelope section, I'm just going to put the attack to 2.76, decay all the way down, sustain at 2.76 again, and release is at 3.74. And then I put a cutoff A and a cutoff B because there is a B section to this, so we'll get to that in a sec. So cutoff A is at 4, and cutoff B is at negative 2.57. So these are pretty much just the amounts that's affecting those controls and parameters by. And I guess we'll do the LFO real quick. So the LFO, why I have this is so it's kind of has the sidechaining sound before I actually sidechain it, so it has already a breath and a life and a kind of vibrant movement to it already before I actually sidechain it. So I kind of like doing that with my white noise now. Before, I used to have my white noise just sound like a very flat, like gust of wind, so pretty much like a shh. That's what I would use Sylenth for, just to generate that nice flat shh sound. And now I like to throw an LFO, so now it sounds like the pulsing sidechaining effect. So it's like shh, shh, shh. I know, excuse my dumb effect sounds that I'm making with my mouth, but now that it has that kind of movement, when I sidechain it, it's kind of more just to control the volume and not to get the pumping effect. So now I have the pumping effect before I go sidechain it. So now like I said, it's just to control it and not for the effect. So that's kind of why I do that. And so the rate here is at 1/4, same as what my kicks are, playing at every quarter note pretty much. This is a pulse wave. The gain is up all the way. And then I just have a mix A and B on separate little boxes. And mix A is at 10 and mix B is at -10. So they're pretty much kind of coming in different ways and kind of playing against each other, or not against each other, but pretty much opposite of each other with the LFO. So that's what I got going on here. And then for part B, so pretty much these oscillator 1 and 2 in part B are exactly the same except for the pan. So if you want, just we'll make this oscillator right here, and then you can just copy it and then paste it over here. So pretty much volume, phase, detune, stereo, all of those are all the way up. You're going to invert this wave. They're all going to be in noise and one voice. And you're going to set the pan all the way down to the left side, so -10. So you're just going to copy that, paste it over here with the CMP things right there. And then you're going to bring this pan to all the way to the right, so at +10. And for our envelope, you're going to make sure that your attack is at 0, decay at 1.44, sustain at 6.26, release all the way down. And make sure you turn off all the retriggers. So even in part A, there's no retrigger. So no retriggers here. We don't need it. Not that it makes a big difference, but you just don't need it. So keep them off. And part B, filter, is very similar to part A's. It's just a high pass, 12 dB slope, reso drive all the way down. Cutoff is a little lower at 16 hertz. And that's pretty much it for part B. So let's move into the EQ. So I just use the EQ to cut out some of the low frequencies again. So bass is all the way down and bass frequency is all the way down. It'd be more effective if I kind of went higher and chose a specific low frequency, but I just brought them all the way down since I'll be filtering out anyway. And a little bit of decay and reverb. It doesn't do too much other than kind of put it in a kind of space a little bit. So my decay is at 21% for dry wet. We got ping pong on, low cutting at around 1K. The left and right delay are at 1/4, and feedback is around 50%. So that's pretty much what you need to get down mainly. And reverb is just, I didn't touch anything except brought the dry wet down to 19%. So that's everything I did in Sylenth. So let me turn off everything here, just so you can kind of A/B what you have. And I have mine mixed down very low at like -36. So that's where it's at on my track here. And let me see, where did I put my output for? I brought my main volume down to to 3.22. So that's where my main volume is sitting at right there. And A, B are just saying right there on 0. So I didn't want it to be too loud, because if you're clipping inside Sylenth, that can be bad. You don't want to clip in your plugins ever. So make sure you always put down the main volume or the outputs or the trims, kind of low. So, or not low, but kind of right in the yellow range, not ever clipping. So don't clip in Sylenth. And let's see. So that's kind of where I'm staying at in my level, -36. And then next thing I did was just filter. So it's not, you can't really hear any filtering because I keep cutting out the low frequencies, but just kind of have a filter on there just to make me feel better about the low end. And then this is a sidechain compressor here, so I sidechain this to my sidechain kicks right here. So these are kicks that are always off, but they're the kicks I use to sidechain. So this is my main kick that's always playing, and this is my sidechain muted kicks pretty much. So since they're going to be off, I put the routing to pre-effects so I can still get that signal to sidechain from. And since this is kind of like a noise kind of undercurrent weather type thing, I go with a hard ratio of like around 5. Attack is very quick, just to get it engaged really right away, and release is kind of slow at 129 milliseconds. You can play around with having it on auto, so auto is gonna detect its own release time. If you want to do that, but I prefer to kind of listen to it and kind of figure out what sounds nice. And my threshold is at -37, it looks like. I'm looking really far away from my screen to talk into the mic. So yeah, that's -37 for threshold, and I have this on RMS. So that's kind of just getting the average of of the signal that's getting the sidechain from, or where it's getting the sidechain signal from. So peak would be like all the high peaks and transients, and this is just the average, sorta. So because of what I did in Sylenth with the LFOs, it already sounds like it's sidechaining, but now with this, it's kind of got a lot of movement. But again, the whole point is to sound minimalistic with it and make it sound very clean and such. So that's kind of what all the extra stuff is. It's just kind of to get it to the white noise to be in a certain frequency range, and to have certain movements to, not be in the way of anything else. So that's kind of what I do with those. And then I have a little bit of chorus here, just to kind of detune it a little bit. So I have feedback at like around 50%. I have dry wet up all the way. The rate is at 7.22k around there. And the amount is at 1.5 milliseconds. And of course I'm high passing around 2.51k. So that's kind of what I got here. And then I just have a little auto pan. So auto pan is going to make it sound wider, but it's also going to give it like a nice stereo effect. But I don't want it to be effect so much as more of a way to fit it in better into the other elements. So the auto pan, I'm going to turn it on as it's playing. So I don't know how many of you can notice the difference, whether you're on monitors or not, or how the internet will play this back. But pretty much this is just a nice way to make it wider and kind of having a little bit of movement without being an effect. So if the amount was at 100%, then you would notice it as an effect. That's an obvious effect, and I didn't want that. I wanted to be subtle and kind of use it for more of a mixing reason, I guess you could say that. So this is the amount is around 23 to 25%. That's kind of where I like it. So it's subtle and it's still doing what I want it to do. And the rate is at 1/8. So just be sure to click on this little note and not hertz. Hertz, you can still, will take a little bit longer to get it to the rate you want it to. So just click on that. Phase, I didn't touch that. And then it's just on a sine wave. So for each side. And that's pretty much what I did there. So again, a quick way to not have to do this over and over for every track, kind of just get the redundant parts of making songs to for me, like I make a lot of racks anyway, so that when I write a new song, certain elements I know I will use like in every track, like white noise, I just have a rack for that. So you click on Sylenth and then press shift all the way to auto pan, press command G, and you can just group this all together, make a little Ableton Racks folder somewhere on your computer, and then dump and add it to your places in Ableton, and then dump this, just drag it over to here, call it whatever you want, and that's ready to go for every track you have. So that's just a quick way to get the parts of songwriting that I know I will do down, so I can just leave more room and more time for creative stuff. So hopefully this helped you guys. White noise is very important, so you do need to at least play around with it and discover its proper uses. And I was talking a bit about where I let it sit in levels. So this is at -35 or -34 is the loudest peak that this reaches. So if you don't know how to get these little things, Ableton kind of does this thing to most people. So you got to pull up this line to see this extra stuff. And this pretty much tells me the loudest amplitude. So I like to make sure it doesn't go above -33. -35 is usually kind of where I start as a starting point to place this. My kicks will be at -6 typically. That's just where I like to have it for gain structuring. So that's kind of how I like to kind of do that. So hopefully that extra little advice helped you too. And thanks guys for watching.